and welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me? Where I discuss hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope during the challenging times of life. I am your host, Natasha Smith. Thanks so much for joining me today. So today we get to hear from Sydnei Kaplan. She is a wife, mom, and the writer behind the blog Mom in the Moment. She is also the author of her recently released book, The Heaven Phone, a children's book that I had the honor of reading with my littles that helps parents navigate the challenging topic of death. And so I met Sydnei in our beautiful online community of writers at Her View from Home, among other fellow grief writers. And so I'm so excited to chat with her today. So hi, Sydnei, and welcome to Can You Just Sit With Me?
Oh, hi, Tasha, and thank you so much for having me. This is
Yay.
such an honor.
So again, I'm just so excited to have you sitting with me today. So just to get started, so can you just share a bit of your lost story, and then we'll kind of talk about how your lost story kind of informed your new book, The Heaven Phone.
Sure, yeah. So my mom died a long time ago, about 19 years ago, when my kids were just 2 and 5. And so I was really sort of just starting to begin motherhood. We had just moved back to the Chicago area, which is where we still live, to raise our kids near our parents. And so that loss was it was unexpected. It was extremely hard for so many reasons, but especially because we had just been really starting to build a life together, including our parents, and especially, me being a daughter who was super close to my mom. That opened all kinds of doors for how I was going to continue with life and with motherhood without her.
Yeah. Wow. And so you said your kids were at the time 2 and 5.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it and is that like the main reason that how the book came about, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and I this is included in I guess you could call it in the dedication portion of the book, but my daughter, who was 5 at the time, was asking all kinds of questions. And my father was with her when my husband and I were out one night, and he was babysitting, getting her to bed, and they were talking. And she had asked him if he still talked to Nana. That was who my mom was referred to. And he told her, yes, of course he did. And she asked if Nana could hear him. And without missing a beat, he told her for sure, yes, Nana can hear me. And, you can feel her answers back. And so my daughter asked him more questions. How does this work? And he kind of explained to her, just whether you talk to her in your heart, in your thoughts, or you say it out loud, she can hear you. And if you just pause, you'll feel her answer back. And so my daughter, said, like, that resonated with her. She didn't use the word resonate, but she
Yeah.
she got that, she felt that. And she was then talking with me about it one time after that, and I tried to explain it a little bit further and told her it was kind of like using her toy phone. And then she asked me, oh, like a heaven phone.
Mm.
And from that many years ago, right then at that point, it started the whole thought process for this book. It was kind of like its inspiration. And we built it from there. We talked about how we could, use our pretend phone, we could use our mind, whatever we wanted to use to reach out to, um, first my mom, and then the following year, actually, my father-in-law passed away.
Mm.
And so we were trying to stay very connected
Yes.
to both of them.
I love that so much, because for one, kids are so inquisitive, right?
Yes.
Um, and I just love just the honesty of, not pushing them away or not pushing them aside or not giving them this, like, blanket, "Oh, don't worry about that," or you know what I mean?
Right,
But
totally.
it's, just a tool, or just helping them actually, give them a way to cope, and explaining a little bit more to them because it's so important.
Right. Yeah. And we didn't want our kids to be, scared of death or afraid to ask questions about it. And a lot of, I think, how parents talk to their kids about death um, goes back to our own spiritual beliefs and religious beliefs and our upbringings. But um, especially me, always when I was a child could have open discussions with my parents about, about what happens when we die and what is heaven and what about forever. And we would talk about all of these things. And so I wanted to make sure that, my kids felt comfortable with that also. And also, to share my personal belief and my husband's personal belief that death is not the end. And we wanted them to feel comfortable in that.
Oh, I love it so much, and one reason why I love it is because I kinda grew up the opposite
Oh,
in that, it's not really talked about, even though, there's been a lot of loss in our family, it wasn't really talked about, and just as a, growing up, just say, something happened, and then I asked, like, one of my parents about death or something like, "No, don't talk about that," or,
oh,
"I'm gonna be here forever," and I'm like, which it creates this unrealistic,
right.
expectation, and the crazy thing, because my dad actually passed,
Oh,
I guess about 6 years now,
yeah.
and it was the hardest thing because he was supposed to live forever, you know?
Right. Oh, I'm so sorry. And even as an adult, I'm sure you're remembering it's
Yeah.
deep in your subconscious that you were told or reassured, oh, I'm going to be here forever.
Yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. So I love this your book and this resource because obviously I'm changing that narrative for my kids
Hmm.
and just want to just get the word out of sharing your book to help those conversations with parents between parents and their kids on death when they're sharing with their kids. So I love your book and just want to help share about it.
Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you so much. And I hope if it can just help, a few people, it will make me happy. It'll make it all worth it.
Yes, absolutely. And so I wanted to, as I mentioned a little bit before we got on, I wanted to chat because the holidays are approaching us, and I had seen a post of yours recently about your dad,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
and so can you just share a little bit of what has kind of happened over this year, and with the holidays coming up, you're going to have a few firsts. So
Yes. Yeah, that's true. So very unexpectedly, back on September 7th, gosh, so it seems so long ago, yet it's so recent. My dad passed away. And this is, as you mentioned, I was trying to explore the different feelings with this being, the first set of holidays coming up without him. And it's probably, I think I said it's like the 20th, without my mom. And it doesn't make it any less sad that she's not going to be here for it. But there is a big difference that we feel with a first, I think. And so I was really trying to do some reflecting into, just how that makes me feel thinking about these upcoming holidays and him not being able to be a part of it. And it also opens all kinds of feelings into what it really means to no longer have him here. Um, as obviously I feel still connected and in
yeah,
the same ways I do with my mom, but the physical presence of someone in your life is powerful. And so it's going to be very hard not doing some of the things that we used to do together, even if they were simple things like we would have a second Thanksgiving on Friday after Thanksgiving. And oftentimes, all family couldn't get together on Thanksgiving because people have extended family that they need to be with. And so we would always host a second one. And oftentimes, he and his wife, so my stepmom, who he married several years after my mom had passed away, they would often do things on Thursday with some of her extended family. And so then on Friday, they would be with us. And that was something that became a tradition, was very special. And this year, it's not going to happen that same way. It's going to look different.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that brings up all kinds of feelings and stuff that I'm probably still processing through. And I'm sure you and anybody who has, faced recent loss feels that kind of thing too.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm just
thank
so sorry. It's so hard, and I didn't realize how recent it had been. I know you, like I
you.
said, your post has said this would be like the first set of holidays.
Mhm.
So yeah, just still processing, as we know, the process,
Yeah.
like, continues and goes on. I love what you brought up about the like with your mom is almost 20 years, you said?
Yeah. Hmm.
Almost
Right.
20 years, and then this most recent with your dad, but how, you know, they both hold, you know, grief.
Yep.
Even though the time span is a little bit lengthier with your mom, but it's still we still hold grief from that loss. Um,
Always. Yeah.
mhm. And so with the loss of your mom, like, how would you describe how has that looked over the years? You know?
I think it was definitely a little bit different when after she first passed away, because I think at first, of course, the so many layers of emotions,
Yeah.
where I don't even think I fully let myself feel it all right away. So it's something that kind of over months and years started being processed, and I would go through the different, feelings of that come along when you lose someone who's that important. Um, and I think one of the things that actually did help me, well, two things. One was really having my children to sort of immerse in. I really threw myself into motherhood, probably even more so than I would have otherwise, and that brought great comfort, especially because my mom was such an immersed mother in our lives growing up, and so I really felt like I was sort of um,
Mhm.
doing what she had done and what she would have wanted to have me do. And then the other thing that was really helpful in dealing with that initial shock and grief was I started to have dream visits are the best thing I could really talk about. And I've written about it. I'm not sure if, I think you've seen
Yeah,
some of
yeah,
it,
yeah.
but many, not just one or two, and not just a dream. They were very different than your average dream. So I fully believe I was, connecting with her in some way. And although those have decreased in frequency now over the years, it brought me great, great comfort
Mhm.
originally to be able to hold on to that and to feel that connection with her.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I haven't experienced that at all, but my husband has with his
Wow.
sister, and it's so
It's
amazing.
amazing, and I
Yeah,
hope that you get to experience that with
yeah,
your sister or with your father, because
yeah,
it's something that brings just incredible comfort. It's hard to
yeah.
even put it into words.
That is so cool.
It is really cool. I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
this is really awesome."
Aw. 'Cause, and it's cool because we know they're not I know, we use the terms lost, we lost someone or they're lost, but they really aren't, right?
Nope, they aren't. They aren't, and I really do think they're closer than we
Yeah.
can ever imagine. It's sort of like
Mm,
just another layer
mm,
away.
that's so good. I love that so much. Yeah, so beautiful. And so kind of to continue a little bit about the holidays, is there anything that you do to kind of make space for either just for grief itself, or is there anything that you do to, just kinda honor or make space for, those that have gone before us?
Well, I think especially with my mom, I can speak to
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be the first with my dad. I don't really know exactly. I'm going to probably allow it to organically unfold, and I'll be able to
Mm.
tell you afterwards what I was able to do to help incorporate and keep him a part of it. But with my mom, a lot of it is centered around things like the preparation and the cooking that I used to help her with as a child,
Mm.
that we did together when I was a young adult. And so now, as I'm doing these things for not just for this set of holidays, but for almost any type of holiday or gathering, I'm really, really connected with and taken back to those experiences with her. So if I'm always going to make a recipe, at least of hers, that associates with a certain holiday memory of mine, and then it will really, as I'm doing that, I often feel almost like her presence is
Mhm.
there with me. So, like for Thanksgiving, I for sure will make her stuffing recipe, because that's something I vividly remember doing even as a child, watching her and helping her as she did that on Thanksgiving morning. So those kinds of things, I think, are a way for me to stay connected with and really celebrate her, like through holidays.
Mhm. I love that so much. I know we're using that word a lot, but I think it's important in our healing journey and this journey of grief, and the word is connection,
Yep.
and continuing to connect. And I don't think I really realized that until like the last few years, really.
How do you stay connected then with your sister or with your father at the holidays?
I know. I'm truly just learning to.
Yeah.
And it's more so, I don't know if it's because of fear that's kinda kept me from trying to have a connection, like a fear of becoming sad.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I started, I can't remember if it was this year or last year. I think it was had to be last year, but I started last year in trying to do this on their birthdays.
Mhm.
And so I feel like I like how it feels, meaning, I'm honoring them and just
Right.
making space to continue to have a better connection with them by acknowledging that, they're so fully present in my life even now.
Really, I think by you allowing your sadness in to be a part of it all, that's going to help you kind of at least have the joy rise above the sadness. The sadness is not ever going to go away fully, but allowing it in lets it find its place and you can focus on joy.
Yes, yes. So I love how what you said about, just the recipes and
Mm.
just having those memories, because it brings back the memories, and it just feels like they're right there with you. And that's kind of what I did with my for my dad's birthday. Was, he used to make homemade pizzas a lot.
Ah,
Like, we used to make those together, and so that's what I had planned for his birthday. And it was such,
nice.
just such a cool thing to do, and it just, it
I
had me
bet your kids love that.
it had me talking, telling more stories about him with the kids, and
Yes.
so it's just a cool way to keep, them here and present. Um, so because I think my last child, the youngest, was only 6 months old when my dad passed.
Oh,
So she doesn't know him,
right.
and I
Yeah,
don't want her to not know him because he was such a great person.
of
So
course.
so yeah. So I think it's important, especially when you're wanting to continue to share them, because they're such big parts of us, right? They will continue to be a part of us. And so we
For
want those
sure.
who love us and know us and who are around us to know them as well, because they're part of us.
Right, right. Very important. I love how you
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah. So yeah, that I love that, because the holidays, that would be a perfect time to think about, because it's a gathering,
Mhm.
we gather a lot during the holidays, and so just thinking of ways in which we've gathered with them before and trying to incorporate them in some kind of way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So, I asked this question because we all grieve differently. We know that we all grieve differently, but I like for guests to share just a tidbit. It's almost like a not behind the scenes, but it's like if we can enter into the mind of the griever, so it kind of helps others to know, like, huh, yeah, it feels a little crazy, and it's okay, and it's normal, and we're all here in
Yeah.
this thing together, and we're not alone, and it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be ask questions. So those type of things, like, how did you feel on the onset of some of this?
Well,
These
that I now I totally get what you're asking, and that's an important question, and it is so everybody should know that there's no one right way to
Yeah,
feel or how to experience it, because it can be so different, and it can seem like, you can question yourself and ask, why am I feeling this way? But really, like you said, we all experience grief differently. So with my dad, he was in the hospital for 5 weeks. So when I say it was unexpected, it certainly wasn't expected that he was going to die.
Yeah.
But he was in the hospital. So as I was going through that journey of the ups and downs with what he was dealing with, I think there were parts along the way where I would get scared. Why isn't this progressing the way it should, or why is this happening? And so I think there was a lot of underlying worry and fear then. And when at the very end, which was probably just several days before he actually died, when it became clear that things were not, looking good, I think I was angry. I was evaluating how things had been handled and still wondering what we could do differently, even when, you know, there probably was not anything at that point we could do differently. I would not let go of that
Mm.
hope because I just didn't want to think about where it was going to go. And
Mhm.
then, just in the couple days leading up to when he died, just incredible emotion and sadness was pouring out. And, of course, running through my mind all of the what ifs and all of the things I wish I had said or done differently. And I think those kinds of things probably happen to a lot of us when we lose someone. And I'm thankful that I was in that mind space before he died, because even though he wasn't awake at that point to hear me, I believe his soul could hear me. And it gave me the opportunity to tell him some of those things and reassure him of some of those things. And I feel like that gave me a little bit of peace.
Yes, I love that. Mhm.
How about for you? Thinking back to how it was for you as you were, um,
Mm.
dealing with or facing those losses.
Yeah. So, again, we grieve differently, but some of we grieve differently, but many of the things are similar as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, just and I think because I actually had two sisters that passed, and
Oh my God.
so I know, but and
Mm.
so they're all different. But one the my first sister, my older sister, passed away when I was a sophomore in college, and so it was just so much dealing with that one. Yeah, so it's kind of complicated because I didn't know
Well,
that
you
she.
were still a child basically
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that one is super complicated because
Mm.
she didn't want me to know that the doctor had gave her so long to live,
Oh,
and so right, and so, my family didn't tell me, and so,
oh, that's a horrible. I don't love that. I know I'm familiar with that because I know parents of like my parents' generation didn't
yeah,
necessarily want to like burden their children with that, but like we
yeah,
need to know.
yeah, yeah, so it's so crazy because it's a whole different type of grief,
Right.
so because 'cause you're grieving, like, I should have known, that aspect of it on top of and, my sister's dead, and so it was really, really, really crazy. So
Mm.
that one was just super, kinda all over the place and trying to figure things out because there was no one in my peer group who had ever lost anyone, and so, it took a long time to even begin to process. So that one was kind of like a stuffing, like,
Yeah.
just stuff it down.
Oh.
Yeah, and then, when my other sister passed away, it was so quick, like, she had gotten a diagnosis and it was a quote, unquote, "promising diagnosis." It was
Mhm.
like, we see this but you should live through it, It was
Right.
that sort of thing because I remember her calling me on the phone and saying, "The doctor said this, but everything is looking okay, it should be okay." And literally within a few weeks, I mean, it was like downhill and all
Mhm.
this, like from getting that, uh, everything should be okay from the doctor to dying was a span of 2 months.
Uh, I know
So
there's almost no way to process that because
yeah,
it's
right?
it's like a complete shift of your what you were expecting.
Yes, and so I just had so much, I don't know, just whirlwind wind of emotions
Yes.
from, like,
Overwhelming.
overwhelming.
Mhm.
Overwhelming, that is the word. Yeah, just overwhelmed. Overwhelming. At that time, I was working full-time outside of the home, and
Mhm.
so it was like, leave the office, drive, like an hour and a half to the hospital, and her mom, like, I mean, my niece, my sister, her mom, we would take turns in the afternoons just sitting with her,
Oh,
praying scripture over her and just being there. And,
can't even imagine what for your niece. Oh,
yeah.
are the two of you really close?
Mhm. Yeah,
Good.
we're kind of like sisters.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah. Hmm. Yep. So, yeah, just a lot of emotions. Anger, a lot of anger, a lot of, whys, questioning, and um numbness, just kind of
yeah.
going through the motions,
Mhm.
and still a lot of stuffing it, because just not knowing what to do with all of the emotions, especially with those around you, because you just think about the first loss of my sister when I was in college was
Right.
over 20 plus years ago. And even that, now people don't really talk about grief as much as they should. So even then,
So true.
right.
That's
So
so
even then
true.
it's just like, yeah, you'll be okay. I don't.
And now I bet that loss from 20 years ago came bubbling up again when you lost your sister
Absolutely.
more recently. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the
And
thing with every loss, it kind of compounds if you haven't dealt with it at all.
yes, that's
So,
why it's so important to talk. Like you said, we need to talk about our grief, how we're feeling.
yep,
Hmm.
exactly, exactly. Thank you for asking and bringing that up. But yeah, it's kind of, I think it helps to just kind of let others know, like, don't stuff your feelings,
Right.
don't stuff your pain. Um, we have emotions and feelings for a reason, and
Yeah.
we need to share them in safe places, with safe
Yes.
people, to be able to
Yes.
talk about them and not stuff them, because if they're compounded, it really does affect the way you do life. It really does.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. um and so, in what ways have you found hope? I kind of want to end on this note.
On something yeah,
Yeah.
uplifting. Yeah. Well, I think my hope in in any loss that I've gone through probably is connected with um my faith that it this is not the end and that we're still connected like we talked about. So for me, that's an integral part of my life and keeping hope not just for them but also for me and for what lies ahead for all of us. I think that changes it changes the way that we look at everything if we have that faith and that belief. So that's, I would say that's a big source of hope and light for me. And what I really do hope to be able to share with other people, certainly wouldn't want to ever infringe on anybody's like belief system or faith or anything, but I would always welcome the opportunity to encourage them to at least explore in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for just sitting with me, and just the opportunity to kind of chat about your life and the losses that you've experienced, where you found hope, and how you kind of cope and navigate through the holidays. I think it'll be just really good listening to the audience, or those who will be hearing the podcast. And helping to kind of inform how they'll do the holidays and how they'll navigate through life as well. And your book, The Heaven
Oh.
Phone, just to have a resource, grab it, add it to your family library, for, like, if you don't, if you're not walking through anything right this minute, that you'll have the resource even for friends and family around you. Um, because we know, grief is this universal thing that we all, if we haven't yet experienced, we will experience at some point. And so I'm thankful for you,
Oh,
Sydney,
thank you.
and thank you for the Heaven Phone, this great resource that we have for children to be able to discuss this challenging topic at times. Um,
Thank you. Thank you
yes.
so much.
So thanks again for sitting with me.
Thank you. This has been a really, really nice discussion, and it's one that I hope lots of other people will look to have
Thank you
also.
so much.
Yeah.
That brings me to the end of this episode. Thanks again for joining me, and thanks for listening to Can You Just Sit With Me? If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to come back for my next episode of Can You Just Sit With Me? Until then, this is Natasha Smith, helping you to find hope in grief, hope in the hard place, and hope in the challenging times of life. Be sure to connect with me across social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at I'm Natasha Smith.